Hey guys, how you doing? Just have my day off, so I'm literally just chilling out on my front porch, enjoying a nice coffee, enjoying the birds. Somebody would comment and let me know if these birds are too aggressive, because they're fairly aggressive. I mean, I love them, but I worry that maybe they get into the video and bother people. Let me know. If not, forget about it. You ever watch these videos where somebody comments on like some sound or something they heard or some kind of thing like this, and then you're listening in the video and you're like, I'm not hearing any of that, and they're like, I'm so worried about it. That's me right now. I'm sure of it. Oh well. Boy, do I need a haircut, eh? Boy, do I need a haircut. It's getting there. It's getting there. I think I'm gonna keep the beard. What do you guys think? I think you guys wait. You guys wait until it gets really good. If any of you have seen any of my early videos, you know that I can get a pretty good beard. Wanna shave this down, trim it down, look like at least I kind of care, right? But you wait, guys. You wait. When the haircut happens, it's gonna be all shaved. I'm gonna look good. You're gonna be like, ooh, who's this debonair gentleman from World War I? And I'll be like, it's me, John. Oh man. What do I want to talk about today, dude? Like, I posted an article on my Facebook feed that is, like, if you want to know how radically evil and immoral the capitalist system is, you really truly need to look no farther than what is going on with the workers in private care homes. These private long-term care homes, which are just symbols of the total egregious failures of the capitalist system, which exist as abhorrent, brutal icons of the desperate evil of the capitalist class. So if you work in a long-term care home, right? A private long-term care home. Well, they want you to be desperate and poor, right? That's how capitalists work. They're not interested in providing full-time labor or full-time work to people. They're not interested in loyalty, compassion, empathy. All these things are meaningless to capitalists, right? They want you to be desperate, and they want you to be poor, and they want you to be in a position where if they have to get rid of people, they can easily just get rid of like a part-timer or something like this. So they don't want a company or an institution of any kind to need to rely on anyone, right? They need you to be easily replaceable. They need you to just slot right in. And the best way to do that is to ensure that their workers are completely desperate and completely poor. And so someone did an investigation on like why is COVID getting into these long-term care homes? How is it possibly happening? Because, he's the investigator, the person doing the investigation, he makes $100,000 a year. He lives in full-time conditions. He's detached from reality, and he doesn't understand what's happening. And I'm not saying that to insult the gentleman who did the investigation, by the way. He admits this. This is him making this statement. Because when he goes into these care homes, what he finds is these long-term care workers are part-timers who are being kept desperate and are not being paid a living wage. And so and it's just staggering to say out loud. So the people who are taking care of our elderly, the people who we have put in service of taking care of us and our grandparents as they enter the final years of their lives, are not being paid a living wage. And so when they leave their job at the long-term care home, they go to a homeless shelter because they can't afford rent, because they can't make ends meet otherwise. So instead of going to a home, to a house or an apartment where they have their own life and they can protect themselves in any way, they are going to homeless shelters. So the system has failed on one of the most massive most egregious ways that it possibly could fail. The idea of privatization is evil. Like it's not that it's wrong or it's wrong-headed. It is egregiously evil, in obvious ways. Like sending people who are working with our elderly to homeless shelters because we refuse to provide them with the base necessities to live a decent life is aggressively evil. Like you really, really have to dig pretty deep to attempt to justify this, and I don't think you can, right? And this just falls into what I've been saying about capitalism generally, which is the people who defend capitalism are either lying, right? It's obvious that they're lying. Like they'll provide false data, or they'll place data points in superfluous places in order to make their point. So, for example, there was a grift a couple of years ago that, capitalism has alleviated more poverty than any other system in the history of the world and mankind. And this is what the liars in the capitalist circles were saying to each other in order to attempt to justify their crimes against humanity. And then you actually take a look at the data, and they literally just arbitrarily set numbers at places. Like, they moved where the poverty line exists. So, like, if the poverty line used to be at, like, let's say $10, they just moved it down to $5 and said, like, yeah, the poverty alleviated. Meanwhile, the actual material conditions of the people who are suffering under this failed system hasn't changed one iota, and in many cases has gotten worse. So the capitalists just outright are lying about it. And the question then becomes, are they aware that they are liars? Like, are they aware that they are... and like, the deeper question... Like, when you watch... Like, when I was growing up, there were all these cartoons around, right, that you would watch, where there were these evil sidekicks, right? The evil villains always had, like... Their motivations were always sort of like clear-cut and cartoonish, but like clear-cut. They wanted to rule the world, right? They wanted to destroy all life. You know, they were just the manifestation of a large-scale existential threat, right? They wanted to own or destroy everything, and that was just the truth. We just accept that. And accept that there are forces in the world that are interested in that. But they would always have these sidekicks, right? They always had, like, goons that... And even as a kid, I found myself looking at them and being like, why are these goons working on behalf of this large-scale evil? Like, why are these... like, why does Shredder have Rocksteady and Bebop? Like, why are they doing that? Why does No Heart have Beastly? You know, what is it that keeps these dumb, moronic, and they're always dumb and moronic, right? You ever notice this? They're always like these idiots who ruin the plans of the evil existential threat, the evil villains, and the evil villains keep them around. And it's gotten me thinking about this. Like, why do the sidekicks stay? B, why does the villain keep the sidekicks when they're obviously a failed liability? And I think, to answer the first question, it's that classic kind of, it's better to rule in hell than serve in heaven. That, like, massive criminals like Mike Harris, who's responsible for privatizing healthcare, long-term health, home care in the system, who just received some sort of medal, incidentally, which is just like the most egregious thing. Like, we're gonna give a guy a medal as he not only jams our elderly into shithole conditions, but also impoverishes the workers and forces them into shelters so that he can rake in millions of dollars for himself for doing nothing. Like, this guy should be tried as a traitor against Canadians, and we're giving him a medal. Like, capitalism is a failed system, without a doubt. And so, and And of course, Mike Harris, he's completely fine with impoverishing us and shoving our elderly into shithole conditions. He doesn't care, right? He cares about himself, and he cares. He doesn't care that the society declines and turns into a shithole, as long as he's the king of it, right? As long as he gets to be one of the wealthy people who lives in like this high kind of place. And to answer the second question, like why do evil people keep idiots around? It's because those are the only people they can influence, right? They can abuse them, they can push them around. The idiots will do what they say, right? And I think it's important to remember, like, these people are idiots, right? Like they're like Doug Ford and Mike Harris are very, very stupid, evil people. It's our inaction that has allowed them to flourish, right? And I mean, Doug Ford is attempting to do the same thing. He's attempting to spread this malice and attempting to to continue privatizing more long-term care homes, right? Like it's like a disease that they're spreading throughout our societies and our communities so that they can make a quick buck off of our dying families. And and we're just supposed to kind of bob our head and nod along, which is exactly what we've done, by the way. We've just bobbed our head and nodded along. And if we actually just stood up and said, no, that's dumb, we're not going to go along with what is obviously a crime. Like, it's obviously a crime. It wouldn't happen, right? It's very simple. And part of the issue of what's happening here in Ontario is that our leadership is so weak, right? People got kind of exhausted with the Liberals, as they should, because Liberals were essentially corporatists who didn't do anything to help anyone until they were sure that there was a legitimate threat to their power. And that threat was not an upswing, by the way, of sudden Conservative or NDP support. It was abandonment, right? Like, Wynne started to put in actual pro-worker, and like, she started to raise the minimum wage once she was threatened with expulsion, with being expelled just by abandonment. Like, Doug Ford didn't experience a spike in his support. The Conservatives didn't experience a spike in support. The Liberals were abandoned. And so right now the leaders, the Liberals are essentially leaderless. I mean, I think they do have a leader, but like, nobody knows who he is. Nobody knows what's going on with them. But the person who deserves, who really we should be pushing on and who we really should be focusing on is Andrea Horath, right? I say this over and over again on this channel. It's kind of tiresome, right? To hear over and over again, right? She's such a weak leader. Like, we're going to be going into an election against like a no-name liberal, essentially an empty chair with the word liberal scrawled across it, and an open and overt sociopath with ties to white supremacist groups like the Proud Boys. I saw this great infographic, by the way. There's Ontario government, Ontario Proud Boys, right? I think that's accurate. That Doug Ford's ties to, but he has that kind of Trumpian sort of thing where he doesn't, he himself is not an outright white supremacist. Like, I'd be very surprised to see Doug Ford walking around in like the Klan gear and all that kind of stuff. But he'll be happy to court those votes. He's happy to court those voters for sure. Like, a vote from a white supremacist is still a vote. So he'll happily court those voters and work with them. And this is the person that Andrea Horath is struggling to defeat, right? That's weak leadership. That's what that is. That's weak leadership. And Andrea Horath has been the leader of the NDP for a while now. Every time I hear her speak, she sounds like a substitute teacher. Sorry, Andrea. And if she can't seize power under these conditions, under what we're experiencing now, she should resign, without a shadow of a doubt. Like we need warriors in this moment, right? And because the numbers are in, guys. Like, the numbers are in. We are being abandoned. Like, abandonment is on the table, and it's full-scale, wholesale abandonment. It used to be that the income inequality numbers, right? You would see it, and like there would be a graph, right? The classic kind of graph like this, right? And the line would go like woo woo, right? And it would be like a real spike up like that. Well, now the graph is quite literally like it's almost exactly along the line of the graph itself. It's like literally nothing, small, tiny, insignificant increase, small, tiny, insignificant increase, shboop, and it's right off. And this means that we have structured our society, like all of the old conservative grifts are childish under these circumstances. Like, go get a job. Like, what are you talking about? There are only 4 of those jobs because the billionaires only need 4 people doing those jobs for them, while the rest of us are being abandoned, right? So you can't do those jobs for people who have no money and get supported. It's I'm trying to find a very clean way of articulating this so that, because like Canadians don't have an attention span, right? They're very fickle and they don't pay attention. They pay attention like the 6 weeks on the lead out to an election and then never again. And I'm attempting to articulate like very cleanly and easily this idea that like the go get a job riff or go get a better job, like there's the only people who can afford to pay for those jobs currently in this environment are billionaires and millionaires, and there's so few of them that they only need a few people to actually do those jobs, right? Like the billionaire class doesn't need infinite lawyers, engineers, and doctors, right? They only need so many of those to fill their desire, and everybody else can go get fucked and get abandoned, right? And if you are a lawyer, doctor, engineer, and you're like, well, I won't work for the billionaires. I'll go work for the other people. The other people don't have any money to pay you. So what do? Right? So this sort of sycophantic, idiotic idea that people can just like go get a better job. Like, what are you even talking about? That there are less and less of those jobs, and more things are being structured so that it's part-time, precarious labor, and that way of thinking has even infected our long-term care homes. Like, is it literally going to have to be lawyers and doctors and engineers being put into these conditions before we wake up and realize that we are being abandoned? Because it seems to be the case. It seems to be the case that we are going to have some kind of insurrection here. We just literally will have to see the people who have been abandoned by our culture pick up guns and storm our Capitol buildings before our center people start to put it together. Oh yeah, this is something I've been thinking about a lot recently, right? Since when is feeding and clothing people a left-wing issue? I should have opened with that. Damn. Since when is feeding, clothing, and sheltering people a left-wing issue? Like, these conservatives walk around with their Bible and they don't read it, right? Jesus Christ, and that's not a swear, I'm literally saying Jesus Christ, he was all about feeding and clothing people and sheltering people. Like, he was all about that, right? How is this not a hard right, like, position? How is this even a political position? How is making sure everyone has food, clothing, and shelter even a political position, right? And the fact that it is should tell you about how effective or how much capitalism wants to propagandize and use and leverage your needs against you while attempting to sell you superfluous wants, right? It's this absurd kind of system that we find ourselves under, where like if you don't work for the billionaire capitalists, you are abandoned, and if you actually stand up and say, hey, wait a minute, shouldn't a society be structured so that its citizens have food and shelter provided for it? Then you're called a communist, and you're expelled from the discourse simply by the force of your desire to ensure that people have food and shelter. Like, this is an evil system. It needs you to be poor. It needs you to be desperate. It needs homelessness to always be on the table. It needs it. Because if the society was suddenly structured so that, oh, well, food, shelter, and clothing, like these are, the society provides these things, this is a given, then capitalism would cease to exist as it currently does, right? And as it currently does, I of course, am a communist, and so I don't think that capitalism can be reformed as a system. It's like trying to tell me that, oh, well, it will only put a little bit of poison in your drink, right? Oh, we could still use a little bit of poison. Like, the entire capitalist system needs to be dismantled, like, not reformed. This is why I stopped really pounding on the basic income. Like, the basic income is a good idea, and I think it's important because I do think it would work, and I think it would alleviate a lot of problems. But it still maintains the capitalist structure, which is that a small cabal of sociopathic pedophiles own everything and tell us what is or is not worth doing. Which is why we don't invest in anything anymore. I read an article recently which was like, why aren't we investing in the Arctic? China is investing in the Arctic. Russia is investing in the Arctic. Why aren't we? It's because we don't invest in anything. The only thing Canada invests in is the fortunes of the billionaire class. They're not interested in investing in projects. They're not interested in investing in any of that because the billionaires don't need that. The billionaires don't need rapid transit. The billionaires don't need high-speed rail. Like, the billionaires don't need any of that, right? The billionaires live in their mansions, and their assistants bring them stuff, and they don't need to improve the society, because the billionaires don't really live in society. They live in these delusional bubbles where they're completely separated from anyone else. And maybe the more creative ones, or the ones who are more bored, will invest their time and energy in their pet projects that they can sort of claim are a benefit to the society, but that's kind of dubious across the board. But that's the best we're gonna get, right? We're never gonna get like, if your pet project as a person is, hey, I don't want to see any more homeless people in my society. And I don't mean I want them to be shoved out of the society, out of my community. I want them to have shelter, and I want them to have food. That's not going to happen, because the billionaires don't give a fuck about that at all. Even though to fix that problem, they would still be billionaires, right? That's what makes it disgusting. That we could resolve this issue, and the billionaire class would still be billionaires, but I mean, they're sociopaths, so the cruelty is part of the point, right? You get off on the domination and power and control of others, which is why they had to assassinate Jeffrey Epstein, right? It was very important for them to do that. Okay, as always, what do we do about it, right? Here in Ontario, vote NDP. Even though Andrea Horwath is a weak leader who sounds like a substitute teacher, she's what we've got. I think if you vote Conservative or Liberal at this point, you are suffering from a pretty significant mental illness. I think pushing behind any organization that is even claiming to be leftist is important at this stage in the game. But most importantly, and this is most important, you have to organize with the people who are around you. You need to create social groups, you need to create unions, you need to create these strong bonded organizations of solidarity that are going to stand with one another, because we are being abandoned. Like, it's, and to me, that's not even, if someone was to attempt to try to convince me that we are not being abandoned, I would think that they were an idiot from the start. Like, It's literally like you're standing in a boat that is sinking. Water is pouring in from the sinking boat. Everyone around you is bailing as hard as they can, and you're standing there being like, the boat's not sinking. You're an idiot. Like, you're just an idiot. Like, I don't... I get criticized from time to time from people who I like and respect that I need to be nicer, but on this point, I will not be nice. If you are going to stand in the middle of a disaster and say that the disaster is not happening, you are a person who can be safely ignored. There's the nice way of saying it. You are a person who can be safely ignored. Except you can't be safely ignored because you deceive other people into inaction. You deceive other people into not actually moving when we need to move, right? And we need to move, and we need to move now. Climate change is going to wipe us out. And if we don't do anything about it, it will wipe us out while we kind of sing and dance about it. I mean, take a look at how we've reacted to COVID. This is exactly how we're going to react to climate change, right? We'll just idly sit by while people starve to death, and we'll just sort of shrug and be like, guess they should have got better jobs. Because we're dumb. We're very stupid people, Canadians. We like to move forward on this, like, oh, we're so nice. Yeah, we're so nice narrative, right? That what a delusion that is. We're not a nice people. We really aren't. Like, maybe we're trying to be nice, and that's kind of nice to think about, I suppose. But the reality is we are a barbarous group of morons who actually are not actually interested in standing up and defending even ourselves. If we were interested in defending ourselves, we would have already abandoned the conservatives and the liberals. But in our defense as a people, our leadership is so weak, right? The NDP is weak. It's a weak party. And the Green Party has been so heavily propagandized against that they can't mount a significant offense. That, nobody's talking to the Albertans but the Conservatives, right? Although it looks like finally the Albertans are going to provincially get rid of their Conservative Party and go NDP again. And I made a video right for Jagmeet Singh telling him, you got to get into Alberta. You got to get into Alberta. You got to talk to these Albertans because no one's talking to the Albertans, right? So we need to be organizing. We need to be mobilizing. We need to be working with people. We need to be changing hearts, changing minds, because as we are being abandoned, we need new structures. We need new institutions. We need new modes of communicating with one another. We need new ideas. Ideas like the basic income are great, but what we really need to do is we need to transfer the shares away from the billionaire class, the capitalist class, into the hands of the workers. And I don't mean pay for it. I mean we take those shares away from these sociopaths and we put it into the hands of the workers and we tell the capitalists to get fucked and get a better job. Okay, this is the end of me. Maybe one day I'll be able to do a video that's longer than a half hour. We'll see. I'm at 88 subscribers right now. I don't like that number. So if you're watching this, if you made it here and you're not subscribed, subscribe. You're going to get more of this kind of stuff. You're going to get more of this kind of conversation. I make shorter videos for to spread around a little bit more on very specific things. I follow the insurrection that's going on in the United States. I follow Canadian politics. I'm based in Toronto, so Canadian politics is my jam. Yeah, what a time to be alive. Go high five a raccoon, swing the moon, jump the jam, do the stuff, smoke a doob. That's exactly what I'm about to do. It's my day off. I'm allowed to go. And if you're sitting there being like, smoke a doob, what a loser. Yeah, enjoy your hockey game and whiskey. All right, guys. I love you all. Keep fighting the good fight. Good luck. We're going to need it.